Each one his name or her name. Graciously, O Lord, grant repose and forgiveness to them all, for none is undefiled, even if he lives a single day on earth. As for those, O Lord, whom you have taken their souls, grant them repose and grant that they deserve the kingdom of heaven. As for us all, grant us, O Lord, the Christian perfection. As for those, O Lord, whom you have taken, grant them and us a sure inheritance with all your saints.
Before I say a few words, I'd like to show my respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, elders past to present, on this event takes place. On behalf of the Diocese of Sydney, I'd also like to welcome and thank you for attending tonight to this memorial service at such short notice. Tonight we come in unity to grieve the barbaric death of 21 of our fellow Coptic brethren. They were decent, loving human beings, each with their own families. We regret this unnecessary and sad loss of lives. We pray for their souls, in particular, for the support to their families, their wives, and their children. We pray for the peace, perseverance, and unity of all those affected by this conflict. At this time, it is very timely that our Church has started her Lenten period in preparation for the holiest of weeks in the Coptic Church. This is the Holy Week when we remember the Passion of our Lord Jesus Christ. It is an appropriate time, therefore, for our congregation to lift up her hearts, asking the Lord to grant comfort and to strengthen the families of those killed and all those people around the world who have been directly and indirectly affected by these extremist acts of terrorism. Our program tonight consisted of a prayer vigil and some hymns, which you've just heard. There will be 3 speakers introduced by Mr. John Morkos, member of the Public Affairs Council, and some announcements to be made. And there will be some concluding remarks before we lead you out into the hall if you wish to join us for a sandwich and a drink or some tea. Again, thank you all for your support tonight. In a moment, I will call upon His Grace Bishop Ashaya to give us a sermon, some spiritual words of comfort. However, first I would like to dedicate a 1 minute of silence to the recent Christian martyrs, the 21 Coptic men beheaded by the IS extremists, and to all the martyrs of Egypt and to those in the Middle East. If I can have you standing up just for a 1 minute silence. I now call upon His Grace, Bishop Ashaya. If I could call upon Mr. Morkos to come and introduce the speakers of tonight and to thank those of the important guests who have also attended to support us tonight from the government and the opposition. Thank you.
Tonight we are joined by a number of guests who have been kind to show their support and express their condolences from the Australian Federal Government, the State Government, the Federal and State Opposition, the Egyptian Government, and some members from political parties. I would like to thank Mr. Nikolas Varvaris MP, Federal Member for Barton, officially representing the Honourable Tanya Abbott MP, Prime Minister of Australia. I would also like to thank Mr. Clare MP, Federal Member for Blaxland, officially representing the Shadow Foreign Affairs Minister, Tanya Plibersek. I would also like to thank His Excellency Mr. Yusuf Shawki, Consul General of the Arab Republic of Egypt in Sydney, representing the Ambassador in Canberra. I would also like to thank Senator Deborah O'Neill from the Federal Parliament. I would also like to thank Mr. Craig Kelly MP. I would also like to thank Mr. Steve Camper, Mr. Chris Mintz, Mr. David Kasanji, Mrs. Iman Sherabim representing the Honourable Mr. Victor Dominello MP. I would also like to thank Councillors Morris Hanna, Morris Mansour and Councillor George Grace. And I would also like to thank Mr. Nicoroni. We also received a number of apologies from members of Parliament who could unfortunately not be with us tonight. They sent through their condolences, and we say thank you to you all, for those of you who have come tonight and those of you who could not come. Thank you for sharing in our grief and loss for the 21 Coptic Christians who were beheaded in Lybia. They were killed just for being Christians. The list is too long to mention you all by name, but we say thank you to you all. We'll now have some brief messages of condolences from some of our guests. I would like to invite Mr. Nikolas Varvaris MP, Federal Member for Barton, who is officially representing the Honourable Mr. Tony Abbott, Prime Minister of Australia.
Your Grace Bishop Daniel, Your Grace Bishop Ashaya, to the many Reverend Fathers of the Coptic Orthodox community, and to the religious leaders who have joined us here of many other denominations, to my parliamentary colleagues, Craig Kelly, the Honourable Jason Clare, and Senator Deborah O'Neill, and my state parliamentary colleagues and colleagues from local government, and to the members of the Coptic Orthodox community. The news of the mass beheading was tragic to us all. On behalf of the Prime Minister, the Honourable Tony Abbott, and all the Australian people, I offer my deepest condolences to the families and friends of those who lost their lives in this attack. I have a message to read to you that was written to His Holiness Pope Tawadros II, Pope of Alexandria and Patriarch of the See of St. Mark of Cairo, upon learning of this tragic news. And it goes as follows. Your Holiness, it is with a heavy heart that I write to you. I was deeply saddened and outraged to learn of the murders of the 21 Christian Egyptians in Libya. The killings are a despicable and entirely unacceptable act of terrorism. They serve only to underscore Daesh's barbaric and twisted ideology. Australia remains steadfastly committed to the fight against extremism and terrorism. We will continue to work closely with our partners to disrupt, degrade and ultimately defeat Daesh. On behalf of the Australian Government and people, I extend my sincere condolences to the victims' families and friends and to the Coptic community. My thoughts and prayers are with you at this difficult time. Yours sincerely, Tony Abbott. Monday morning, we woke up to the horrific news of 21 Egyptian Coptic Orthodox Christians being beheaded by Daesh-affiliated extremists in Libya. Many of us, I'm sure, would have seen the heart-wrenching video of the event which took place. 21 brave men led to the seaside in orange suits where their lives were to end in the most horrific way. These family men, each and every one of them, were called out by name from amongst their families so that they may be the face of this horrific mass beheading. It is difficult to comprehend that 21 men who left their home country, Egypt, to build a career and provide for their families, found themselves helpless in the hands of these Daesh-affiliated extremists. This was another barbaric act carried out by Daesh, an act which closely follows the execution-style murders of a Jordanian pilot and 2 Japanese nationals. It's a horrific atrocity which has been continuously instilling a sense of fear among people of all nationalities. Nonetheless, the threats which instill these fears only work towards strengthening our resolve to work with our partners to counter the threats of Daesh and their affiliates. My deepest condolences and prayers go out to the families and friends of the 21 men who lost their lives.
I would now like to invite Mr. Jason Clare MP, Federal Member for Blaxland, officially representing the Shadow Foreign Affairs Minister, to say some words of condolence.
Thank you very much and good evening. Bishop Daniel, religious leaders, Consul General, members of Parliament, and the great Coptic Orthodox community of Australia. It's a privilege to be with you tonight in this fraught and most terrible of circumstances. And my message tonight is that in this terrible, most terrible of times, Australia is united in grief. And what better way to demonstrate that than to have representatives of the 2 major political parties in Australia to join together tonight, and to have messages from the 2 most senior politicians in Australia, the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition. You've heard some wonderful words from the Prime Minister of Australia. My responsibility tonight is to give you a message from the Leader of the Opposition, Bill Shorten, and this is his message to you. The Australian Labor Party stands in solidarity with the Coptic community in condemning these senseless and horrific acts of terrorism. We are shocked at the brutality of the extremists responsible for the mass execution of the 21 Egyptian Copts in Libya, and our hearts go out to their families and their loved ones. Words aren't sufficient to describe the depths of depravity and barbarity of Daesh. For Daesh, the enemy is not one nation. It's not one faith or one people. Their enemy is the presence of peace. Their enemy is the presence of justice. Their enemy is the presence of religious tolerance. Their target is freedom of worship, freedom of association, freedom of speech, freedom itself. In confronting the threat of fanaticism and extremism on the other side of the world and here at home in Australia, we can't ignore the dangers of prejudice and racism. We must guard against dangerous division and recognise that we are stronger, better and safer when we all stand together. And so together we pray for the 21 innocent lives that the world has lost. And together we'll continue to pray for peace in the face of evil.
I now invite His Excellency Mr. Yusuf Shauki, the Consul General of the Arab Republic of Egypt, representing the President of Egypt, to say some words of condolence.
Your Grace, Bishop Daniel, Honourable Nikolas Varvaris, Honourable Mr. Jason Clare, dignitaries and government officials, ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you tonight feeling the deep sorrow and the grief of those who lost their lives, their loved ones in Libya, the sons of Egypt, victimized by the hands of heartless, gutless terrorists. I feel the pain of the families who have lost a son, brother, or husband. It is indeed a tragedy beyond imagination. My deepest condolences to them, to you, to Egypt. I stand here to firmly say that the Egyptian nation's solidarity will never be shaken by such cowardly act. Our government has started a course of action to avenge our martyrs. We will voice our message to the enemies of humanity, loud and clear. Don't think that murdering innocent souls will go unpunished. You will pay the price. Certainly, justice will prevail. I stand here before you, feeling the sympathy of the Australian nation with us. No doubt that the presence of the figures and dignitaries tonight is an obvious proof. We would like to assure you that the Egyptian government is rising to the challenge and will work to eliminate terrorism. We started to implement a plan of action on both tracks, military and diplomacy. Egypt is exerting all efforts to rally the international community behind the cause of eradicating terrorist organizations. All countries have to participate and realize that the threat of terrorism constitutes a real danger, not only to Egypt or the region, but also to the whole world. The situation in Libya is a real threat to the international peace and security, which prompts an immediate response by the International Security Council. We call upon all people suffered from terrorism and lost loved ones to stand with us and support the Egyptian efforts. Egypt expects its friends and allies to join efforts in the war against terrorism and call upon all peace-loving countries to stand hand in hand with Egypt.
I'd also like to acknowledge the Australian Deputy Consulate General of Egypt, Mr. Anna Farid. We'll have the speech by His Grace Bishop Daniel, but there's just a short announcement by Mr. Anthony Hanna, representative of ACM.
My name's Anthony Hanna, and I'm here on behalf of the Australian Coptic Movement Association. As some of you may be already aware, a gathering has been organised for this Sunday at Martin Place at 2 p.m. We decided to take this action to show a public display of solidarity on behalf of the community. This was something that you asked for, and we've put into action, and we hope we see everyone there. The outcomes of this Sunday will be to show our support not only for the 21 Copts, but for everything that's happening in the world around us now, from Paris to Copenhagen, the Link Cafe, and now like what we've seen in Libya. In unity, I believe we all can make a difference. For further information, please just visit our website or come and see me afterwards. That's Martin Place at 2 o'clock this Sunday. Thank you.
May I call on the Reverend Father Gabriel just to thank also the leaders of the churches and the denominations who've attended with us tonight.
I'm just reading this on behalf of His Grace Bishop Daniel. There's a number of members of different churches that have joined us today, and we recognise them by saying who they are. We have with us His Eminence Metropolitan Gabriel, His Eminence Metropolitan Daniel Yaqub, His Eminence Metropolitan Multi, Monsignor Marcelino, representative of Archbishop Anton Ra, Father Joshua El-Khoury from the Melkite Catholic Church, representing Bishop Robert Rabat, Very Reverend Father Philip Saunders, representing the Anglican Bishop of Canberra, Reverend Roy Bennett from the Anglican Diocese of Canberra, Father Yusuf from the Coptic Catholic Church, Father Thomas from the Indian Orthodox Church, Reverend Father Shenouda Mansour, Secretary of Denise Household's Ecumenical Council, Sister Elizabeth Delaney, Secretary General of the National Council of National Christian Council of Australia, correct? National Council of Churches of Australia. We've also received 5 letters, formal letters from different leaders, and again we say thank you. On behalf of the church, I'd like to thank you to Bishop Mark Liskey from the New South Wales District Lutheran Church of Australia for his support letter and kind words for the Coptic Orthodox people of Australia. Also, Archbishop Dr. Glenn Davis from the Anglican Church Diocese of Sydney for his heartfelt letter of support on behalf of his congregation. Also, Reverend John Barber, the President of New South Wales Ecumenical Council, for his condolences and ongoing support for the Coptic Orthodox community in Australia. Also, the Right Reverend Stuart Robinson, the Bishop of the Anglican Diocese of Canberra and Goulburn, for all his love and support. Also extended thanks to the Reverend Dr. Mike Senator, President of the National Council of Churches in Australia, and Sister Elizabeth Green again, General Secretary of the National Council of Churches of Australia, for their sympathies, praise and support. Also, Bishop Mark, also on behalf of District Lutheran Church, I think we mentioned that as well. So we thank every one of you for your love and support from the church.
Thank you, Father Gabriel. And before we conclude the night, we'll now listen to a sermon from His Grace. Bishop Daniel, your grace.
In the name of Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Dear Your Graces, dear Reverend Fathers, dear His Excellency Mr. Yusuf Shawqi and Mr. Ahmed, dear the representative of Mr. Tony Abbott, dear representatives of the leader of the opposition, deacons, servants, fathers, beloved congregation, I greet all of you in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. I will try to summarize my word. As Christians, persecution is not new or different. St. John, the disciple of our Lord Jesus Christ, he is one of the 12 apostles. In his Revelation chapter 17 verse 6 says, I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. This verse shows us that persecution and killing our Coptic Christian or Christian in general is not something new. It is written in the 1st century by John the disciple. And this woman, representing the power of the devil, and she was drunk by what? Not by alcohol. She was drunk by the blood of the martyrs. So we are ready for martyrdom. Another point, as Christian, these vicious acts makes us stronger in our belief in God and in God only. We don't fear anyone. Not our persecution, not our persecutors, not persecution, nor we hate them. We do not hate them. Let me say what had been mentioned in Luke chapter 12, verse 4 and 5. And I say to you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body, and after that had no more that they can do. But I will show you whom you should fear. Fear him who, after he has killed, has power to cast into hell. Yes, I say to you, fear him. We are not fearing our persecutors, neither we hate them. Our Lord Jesus Christ instructed us to love our enemies, as Bishop Ashi has said for us. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 43, the Lord said, you have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemy. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you. So we do not hate Daesh. However, I have two messages for Daesh. One, be sure that whoever kills by the sword will be killed by the sword as well, but not by us. I will prove this by reading Revelation chapter 13, verse 10. This is not my saying, this is a saying of the Bible. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with a sword must be killed with a sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Message number 2 to Daesh. Be sure that this blood whom you killed will not go in vain, by all means. I will read this verse, which mentioned in Revelation chapter 6, from verses 9 to 11. And when he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on earth? Then a white robe was given to each one of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer, until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were was completed. There is judgment day, brothers and sisters. On this gathering, we would like to thank the Egyptian President, Mr. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, for many things, but I will mention two. After this barbaric attack, President Sisi went to our head cathedral in Abbasiyah, and he expressed his condolences to the Father of the Father, His Holiness Pope Tawadros, by himself. We thank him for this. Number two, he acted as a wise, competent, wise leader of the Egyptian nation. He didn't talk. His Excellency, Mr. Yusuf Shawki, called me twice and gave me a report that the General Security Council of Egypt met immediately, and they decided and they acted. They set a plan and implemented the plan. President Sisi from St. Anthony and St. Paul Church in Sydney, in Guildford, in Australia, we thank you. We would also like to thank the Premier of the Australian nation, Mr. Tony Abbott, Prime Minister, sorry for this, because he sent a letter to His Holiness Pope Tawadros. I saw this letter by my own self, and I would like not to repeat it. Thank you, Mr. Varvaris, for reading the letter. However, I would like to thank also the Prime Minister of the Egyptian nation, Mr. Mahlou. Why? The Prime Minister of the Egyptian nation went and visited the victims, the family of the victims, and he issued a decree to build another Coptic Orthodox church in the place of the victims in Upper Egypt. I read it by my own eyes. Prime Minister Mahlif, thank you for your cooperation. I would like also to thank the leader of the opposition. Thank you very much for coming and saying this word of condolences and support today. And I would like to conclude by a saying, quote by John Chrysostom. St. John Chrysostom said, "The devil will fear the blood of the martyrs. He will see the spots of the blood of the martyrs in their body and he will fear them." And he continues saying, why? Because the devil will remember the precious blood of Jesus Christ on the cross. And he will tremble and fear these martyrs because they were representing the people who has a strong faith. Dear brothers and sisters, as Bishop Ashaya said, and all the speakers, thank you for all the speakers. Today, we are leaving the matter to the hand of the Lord. But we must not hate anyone. We love everyone, and we need to pray for everyone. Thank you very much for coming and support. Glory be to God forever and ever. Amen.
Your Graces, first of all, I'd like to make my apologies. I have Major representing James Condon, Major Paul Moulds from Salvation Army of Auburn, and I have, to be honest with you, Sister Elizabeth Delaney, General Secretary of the National Council of Churches, I myself as General Secretary of the New South Wales Ecumenical Council, received a number of calls of apologies. Today is Ash Wednesday for the Western Church, and Ash Wednesday is the significant day of the commencement of the Great Lent for the churches, which includes the Roman Catholic, includes the Uniting Church, includes the Anglican Church, includes all of the Christian churches. So that's the reason why many of them are not present here, Your Grace. And even the Bruderhof community rang me and said, please give my apology. We can't travel from far to come through here. And we also acknowledge the Anglican Diocese of Canberra here with us tonight, and they wrote to us coming through. So Grace, would you accept the many apologies that received from Sister Elizabeth and myself, both by phone and by emails as well. Thank you, Grace.
Events that we've just experienced in an occasion like tonight are never easy. On behalf of the Diocese of Sydney, I wish to thank each and every one of you for sharing your time with us tonight. You each have your own responsibilities. You each have your own family commitments. But your time with us tonight is a vote of support for the Coptic community and for all of those who have suffered around the world at the hands of extremism. This concludes the night. I wish to ask you to please join us after the event for the members of Parliament and the politicians and the religious leaders. If you could please join the bishops in the hall. If the congregation, if you could please also share with a meal as you're walking out of the church. There will be sandwiches being distributed outside. Thank you again for joining us tonight.